Hello, I am Fred Feliciano. This is Critical Conversations HR. And in today's video, we will be going over the 5 things to do if you are being sexually harassed at work. By the way, this is not legal advice. This is just a human resource professional telling you what you may want to do if you feel that you're being sexually harassed at work. Stay tuned. It's going to get interesting. Welcome back. The 5 things to do if you're being sexually harassed at work. Number one is to understand what is the definition of sexual harassment. So before you say that you are experiencing something at work, you feeling that you're being harassed, you really need to understand what the definition of sexual harassment is. So for today, we're going to be going over to SHRM's website where we will be looking at the definition of sexual harassment. By the way, if you're an HR professional or if you are a small business owner and you need resources in terms of HR, SHRM is a place to go to. So let's take a look at what they say sexual harassment is. According to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, there are 2 types of sexual harassment claims. The first being hostile work environment, and the second being quid pro quo. Okay. So let's go over the definition of hostile work environment. Hostile work environment is, or actually, it arises when speech or conduct is so severe and pervasive that it creates an intimidating or demeaning environment or a situation that negatively affects a person's job performance. This type of harassment can be perpetrated by anyone in the work environment, including a peer, supervisor, subordinate, vendor, customer, or contractor. Hostile work environment situations are not as easy to recognize, given that an individual's comment or occurrence may not be severe, demeaning behavior may occur that is not based on sex, and there may be long periods between offensive incidents. Examples of conduct that might create a hostile work environment include inappropriate touching, sexual jokes or comments, repeated requests for dates, and a work environment where offensive pictures are displayed. Quid pro quo means this for that. In this context, it involves expressed or implied demands for sexual favors in exchange for some benefit, promotion, pay increase, or to avoid detriment, termination, demotion in the workplace. Quid pro quo harassment is perpetrated by someone who is in a position of power or authority over another, e.g., manager or supervisor over a subordinate. A clear example of quid pro quo harassment would be a supervisor threatening to fire an employee if he or she does not have sex with the supervisor. The EEOC says sexual harassment can occur in a variety of circumstances, including the following: the victim, as well as the harasser, may be a man or a woman. The victim does not have to be of the opposite sex. So it can be on, same sex person harassing another, man harassing another man, woman harassing another woman. And also, one thing that's becoming more common is women sexually harassing men in the workplace. I will say that's not the majority of cases, but that is a percentage of cases. There are examples of women harassing men. The harasser can be the victim's supervisor, an agent of the employer, a supervisor in another area, a coworker, or a non-employee. The victim does not have to be the person harassed, but could be anyone affected by the offensive conduct. So, let's say if you're working in an environment and you are witnessing this behavior, you don't necessarily have to be the one who is being threatened in terms of their job. If you're there, you're witnessing this, you can file a complaint. Unlawful sexual harassment may occur without economic injury to or discharge of the victim. So basically, this means that someone could be sexually harassed, and it doesn't mean that they were terminated. Someone doesn't have to be terminated to be a victim of sexual harassment. And then the last piece of this definition is the harasser's conduct must be unwelcomed. It must be unwelcomed. The second thing to do if you're being sexually harassed at work, and this is a very important one. A lot of employees don't do this. I could tell you from my 25 years experience in doing human resources, most employees have not even seen a copy of the organization's sexual harassment policy. So if you don't have it, get a copy of the sexual harassment policy. It should be in your organization's employee handbook. And that sexual harassment policy, by the way, if a company doesn't have one, that's not good. There's no reason why an employer should not have a sexual harassment policy. There needs to be one in place. So if you're an employer, you're a small business and you need help, feel free to reach out. I can help you with that. Um, so in terms of the sexual harassment policy, it needs to define what sexual harassment is. Again, this is not rocket science. An employer can go to the EEOC and get the definition of what sexual harassment is. Another important aspect of the sexual harassment policy is that it needs to include a reporting procedure. It needs to tell the employee who the person should go to if they feel they've been a victim of sexual harassment or they're experiencing this at work. Okay. In some cases, a sexual harassment policy may have some sort of hotline where you can call and speak to an attorney. Um, Also, if you work for a nonprofit organization and the person who you feel is harassing you is the CEO or the executive director, typically it will point you to a board of directors. All nonprofits have a board of directors. So the sexual harassment policy needs to have those elements in there. And you, as the employee, need to get a copy of that so that you adequately know who you should go to report sexual harassment. The third thing that you should do if you feel that you've been sexually harassed. Now, this is going to be a little bit controversial. Some people may not want to do this. And if you don't, that's okay. This one is optional. This one is optional. You may not feel comfortable doing this, but if you feel that you are being sexually harassed at work, the thing you can do is approach your harasser, the person who's making comments to you or making you feel uncomfortable, and let them know that you want the behavior to stop. An important element of sexual harassment is that the behavior is unwelcomed. So, but it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to approach the person to let them know. But one thing HR or anyone doing an investigation is going to ask you is, did you let the person know that you were not interested in their advances? Um, and if you say no, it doesn't mean that you were not sexually harassed. That is just a data point for someone who's investigating a sexual harassment complaint to know about. Okay. If you're a manager, unfortunately, one thing I hear in the past is, why didn't this person come to me and complain and tell me that they felt I was harassing them? And if you're a manager, understand this. The employee has no obligation whatsoever to confront you. Most people avoid confrontation. Most people do not want to be put in a situation where they're confronting the person harassing them. And more importantly, a lot of people fear consequences. They fear what is called retaliation. They fear that you will make it very difficult for them to be at work. And if you're a manager hearing this, there's something called constructive discharge, in which a manager could make the environment so poor for the employee that it forces them to quit. So, if you're a manager, understand that the employee has no obligation to come to you or go to their harasser to say that they feel sexually harassed. The fourth thing that you should do if you feel that you've been sexually harassed is obviously report it. You have a copy of your handbook, you have a copy of the policy, you understand the reporting procedure. Now it's time to actually report it. So I would just say before you report it, you really have to understand what has transpired. So you may want to sit down before you actually go to HR because they will be asking you very specific questions. And you may want to take some notes, right? For the basics: who, what, when, where, how. And also very important, anyone conducting an investigation is going to ask you, were there any witnesses? Was there anyone around who heard this? In terms of the emails, who was CC'd? So take some notes before you report the incident to HR, and just have those notes ready with the basics: the who did this, what exactly transpired, when did this happen, and how did you know it happened? Was there something happening on that day? Was there an event? Was there an email? Obviously, emails are very easy to track down. Okay, so that's number 4, reporting it. And number 5, the fifth thing to do if you feel that you're sexually harassed at work. Now, you have 2 options in terms of the end result. Either you can leave, the environment is so bad, you've reported the harassment, human resources or the organization did not do anything about it, and unfortunate as that may be, it does happen. You may work in an environment where they're supporting someone who is treating people poorly, and the culture is bad, and the organization is unwilling to discipline anyone or discipline that employee. The person that has harassed you may be a key employee, they may hold a lot of power, and they may be a good producer. They may bring in a lot of revenue to the organization, so the organization is gonna be very hesitant to discipline that person or to terminate them. So, one thing that you can do is just leave the organization, um, or the second option that you have is get an employment attorney. I don't say that lightly. I don't advise employees to go out and seek legal representation, but it is your right to do so, especially if you've been a victim of sexual harassment and the organization has done nothing to remedy that. Eventually, I will be doing another video with an employment attorney talking about sexual harassment and also talking about what to do if you've been harassed, and working with an employment attorney. But a couple of things to note is that in terms of working with an employment and labor attorney, one, you have to be able to compensate them. They'll ask you for a retainer, and it might be costly. Some employment and labor attorneys can charge anywhere from 175 an hour up to $1,000 an hour. The prices vary. The better the attorney, the higher the hourly rate will be. Uh, Many attorneys take cases of harassment on a contingency basis. That means that they won't charge you a dime for taking your case, but they will take a third of what the settlement is. Okay. Most employment attorneys will tell you if you're being sexually harassed at work, don't quit, stay at the place, hire an attorney, retain an attorney, and allow them to work out a settlement with you. So, again, this has been the 5 things to do if you feel you've been sexually harassed at work. We hope that this helps you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And again, this is not legal advice. This is an HR professional sharing with you my expertise and information in the field of HR in terms of what you may want to do. Thank you. Take care.